What up, everyone? Big Kev back in the building. Today we're going to be checking out there are thousands of alien empires in the Milky Way. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's check it out. Yeah, the title of this one definitely grabbed my attention. I had to check it out and kind of discover what their theory was on why there are thousands of alien empires throughout the Milky Way. So let's get into it.
What if there are thousands of alien empires in the Milky Way,
Like the
each
animation.
spanning a few to maybe tens of star systems,
Pretty dope
chatting,
looking.
trading, sometimes shooting or ignoring each other politely? And if so, why is nobody visiting us?
Yeah, right?
While the Milky Way is ancient and gigantic, even traveling at 10% the speed of light, any civilization could take over the whole galaxy within a million years. But we
Oh, that's
haven't
all?
seen anybody yet. So it seems we're alone in the Milky Way.
Or
But this
are we?
idea is built on a lot of assumptions. Usually, when scientists speculate where all the alien civilizations are, they assume technology will progress to a point where colonizing all of space becomes kind of easy. But what if we're thinking about this the wrong way? What
Okay.
if the universe is full of life, but no matter how technologically advanced you are, space is never easy? What if
That's a good point. I mean, space is pretty daunting, so it's not necessarily a given that other older civilizations would have conquered it. It could be just as difficult for them as it is for us.
aliens slowly crawl through space, expanding like humans did over the ocean? Let's look at the only data point we have:
I was
ourselves,
gonna say ours.
the available real estate in the galaxy. Oceania is a region with tens of thousands of islands scattered across millions of square kilometers, separated by an unforgiving, deadly sea. Kind of like a galaxy. Some
True.
5,000 years ago, the first people set out to colonize Oceania. Especially the Polynesians achieved mind-blowing feats. Without any modern technology, they set out into the vast nothingness, hoping to find a new island to claim, or, like, die far from home. But
One of
most
those
the
two.
Pacific Islands are merely a few wet rocks or corals, maybe some palm trees, and if you're lucky, birds making a pit stop.
Yeah, right. There's like a lot of little islands that are basically empty except for limited wildlife or, some trees with fruit growing or something. But, there's not much on a lot of those little islands. That had to be pretty frustrating for, a lot of the ships trying to find new places to call their own.
Others with more vegetation are often hostile, lacking the resources to really sustain a lot of people, and remain uninhabited even today.
Yeah, I know, right?
And then,
There's still tons of islands today that you could purchase and own yourself because no one really wants them. You can't really survive on them on your own. You need to rely still on the mainland for assistance.
there are the good islands. The Polynesians colonized them, spreading their culture and society to dozens of remote islands of all sizes. Some united in kingdoms spanning many islands, others were independent, many home
I'm
to
my own
competing
boss.
and belligerent tribes. And although thousands of kilometers apart, even the most remote islands were connected with at least some trade and exchange.
Yeah.
A microcosm of humanity. But it didn't always work out. The extremely isolated Pitcairn Islands were settled for hundreds of years and relied on trade with each other and bigger islands hundreds of kilometers away. And then the local population vanished.
Oh.
We don't know why. Maybe because the islanders
figured
did
out
the
why.
human thing and ravaged the natural resources until they became unsustainable.
Could be a
Maybe
reason.
the decline on distant, bigger islands severed important connections. We only know their culture declined and they left or died out.
Huh.
What if space is an ocean to us? A hostile place that's hard to conquer?
Good analogy.
Would alien civilizations spread like the Polynesians? The universe is kind of a horrible place. The Milky Way has around 200
Kinda
billion star
sus.
systems, and it seems that almost all of them have planets. Estimates vary, but there may be some 300 million to tens of billions
Damn.
of rocky Earth-like planets in the habitable zone around a star where water can be liquid.
That's a lot of planets.
Amazing. Except that most of them are terrible.
Yeah.
Hells of lava, dead frozen worlds, bare rocks sterile from radiation, blanked by toxic
You know,
atmospheres.
fun
It's
places.
easy to forget, but Venus and Mars are Earth-like too. Mars is the next human frontier and fairly exciting. But Mars dust is poison, and deadly radiation and low gravity will make you sick.
Yeah, you know, nothing too major.
Mars is the worst.
The
Except
worst.
Venus is even worse,
Oh,
crushing
cool.
you to death, burning and dissolving you in acid. If humanity was
Fun.
really motivated and had the resources and energy, both could be terraformed within maybe 1,000 years. We showed how in other videos. But the thing is, we already have a planet that's pretty great, so currently humanity's motivation is not very strong. Now let's think
Not
about
right
this
now,
in
anyway.
terms of galactic expansion. If the Milky Way is like a vast ocean full of islands, most are planets like Mars and Venus, barren rocks or corals where nothing grows and the elements kill you.
Yeah.
Imagine boarding a generation ship to travel for 100 years or more, only to arrive at a new star and then you get a Mars. Or worse, a Venus.
Yeah, right?
What a letdown. Terraforming them is such an intense investment in terms of resources to make it worth spending the time to travel to the stars for bad planets.
Plus, it would take like 1,000 years, so you're not even doing it for your own generation. You're doing it for, many generations down the road to live there. So not only is the time investment, huge, but if you're not going to even see the fruits of your own labors, it's hard to get people on board with that amount of work for people that they're never going to meet or know.
Maybe the simple reason we don't see galaxy-spanning civilizations is that the economics just don't add up for
Yeah.
almost all of the star systems out there. But wait, you might say it's actually easy. A high-tech race with unlimited resources could automate this process, sending thinking machines that report back every few thousand years with new planets ready for fresh settlers, or
What place has unlimited resources, though? That seems like just as unlikely as anything else.
automated ships with embryos. But if it were that easy, someone would have done it by now. So either we are really alone, or it's not easy. Thinking about alien civilizations, you need to make loads of assumptions. And for this video, we're assuming that space is hard even for high-tech civilizations that have broken free from the limitations we have today. Now, things are getting exciting. So what if alien civilizations actually ignore the bad islands and just pick the very best, stringing together island empires like the Polynesians? Thousands of galactic empires. Every star moves in its own orbit through the galaxy, and most stellar neighborhoods are only temporary. At any given time, in some regions there will be more good islands than in others, while simply because of bad luck, other regions will be pretty isolated. Earth might currently be in one of these backwaters, surrounded by really bad islands for
Yeah.
dozens of light years in all directions. We may be Pitcairn Island, so isolated that nobody knows we're here or cares to establish a colony so remote.
Oh yeah, that's a good point too. Yeah, we might just be out in like the boonies and no one wants to come visit us because we're just too far away or just unnoticed among the myriads of better places to settle.
But elsewhere in the Milky Way, good islands may be more common. There it would be relatively easy for a high-tech civilization to jump from one good star system to the next, creating connected empires. Strings of worlds, with all the adventure and challenges of expansion, even to really good planets. Do they need to animate dead worlds with oceans? How do they cope with alien microorganisms or strange ecosystems?
Yeah,
Do they
right.
need to burn it all down and create a mirror of their home world, or do they adapt? How many centuries do they need to make a planet truly their home? Empires expanding in regions full of good islands would probably meet each other. Maybe they trade, maybe they fight, maybe they have coffee and chat about the meaning of it all. And just like some of the Polynesian islands, it's likely that many of these planets would be abandoned or for the empires to break apart for a number of reasons. First of all, most great neighborhoods would dissolve over time and connected islands would become remote. Then it just may be the nature of civilization to become unsustainable or self-destructive. Humanity is extremely young, and we've already flirted with extinction. There are numerous existential risks.
That's a good point. I mean, if we've almost gotten there, I'm sure a lot of those other civilizations, if they're out there, have gone through the same thing.
Cultural, technological, and environmental that any civilization has to deal with. And smaller colonies on new planets would likely be less resilient than their home worlds and in bigger danger of dying out. Whenever this happens, this would leave a good island free again for others to rediscover and colonize. It's free real estate. Also, space is just a different ballpark. The enormous distances between stars make it hard to maintain a consistent civilization. Just think about how many cultures we have on Earth alone. Imagine if sending a message between continents took decades to arrive. Would colonies care what the home world wants from them if it can neither help nor really enforce its will on them? This also would make interstellar war, except the genocidal kind, completely uneconomic. Would you go to war with someone because their great-grandfather killed yours? At these distances, it's not like anyone can.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, kind of, you get that kind of distance and time between things. Kind of feuds don't really mean much, 3 or 4 generations down the road to most people. Certainly not enough to expend the resources that you need to go to intergalactic war.
Easily sneak up on each other anyway. And on a much more fundamental level, if island empires don't exchange relevant amounts of genetic information, if there are no hookups between worlds, sooner or later, these populations will develop in different directions and eventually become different species,
That's true
making
too.
it less likely that they'll want to be under common rule. So the idea of enormously big, connected empires may just not be feasible if the galaxy is an ocean where good islands are few and far between. But this also means that new civilizations may pop up constantly, spread and partially or completely die out, even if just by splitting into different factions. Islands may be recolonized and abandoned over and over. What would this mean for us? We might think we're alone only because we're on an isolated island right now. But there could be thousands of worlds full of diverse civilizations elsewhere that we would eventually drift closer to. Does this make the Milky Way more scary or less scary? Is it a good thing that we'd have time to get our act together before we face anyone else? Or is it a great tragedy that we might not have the chance to meet our neighbors beyond for a long, long time? Well,
There's definitely pluses and minuses to both. I'd probably rather not meet our neighbors since we do not know their intentions, but we have a hard enough time governing ourselves, let alone dealing with intergalactic empires. I don't know how we'd handle that.
we don't know, but it is something for you to ponder tonight when you look up at the sky again. Hopefully, humanity is still at the beginning, and we're learning a tiny bit more about the universe every day. One day, we might spot a good island, and, if we're lucky, many more close by.
Yeah, that was a interesting video. I definitely like kind of when it poses those types of questions. I didn't think about what if we're just out in the boonies, basically, and that's why we don't know of any other civilizations out there. We're just too far removed to reach them, and for them to wanna reach us due to things like, expense or just not knowing that we're out there, and that they'd more likely colonize, regions where there's lots of, good potential habitable places in a relatively, for space anyway, close location from one another, and right now we do not fit into that category, it seems. So I definitely hope we don't drift closer to them. Yeah, which way would you prefer? Would you prefer that we drift closer and that extra, intergalactic empires were able to one day locate us, or would you rather remain isolated and where we are now and not be found by any other alien empires in the near future? I'm probably sticking on the side of avoidance, but I'm sure there's lots of people out there who would embrace, meeting the aliens. So let me know down in the comments below. Until next time, have a good one.